The title of this morning's message is The Robber and the Restorer. The Robber and the Restorer. Now, I know what you're all thinking. You're thinking, here's a lad from Liverpool given the topic of you should not steal. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Andy, you've got a story, haven't you? So here it is. It was March the 12th, 2006. Yes, that was the actual date. I was in the school rugby team, obviously. And we were on a school rugby trip to the Lake District. And there was one night we were on our rugby trip and we were going to be going on a social evening to the cinema. And we just had our evening meal and we'd been given about 10 minutes to get ourselves ready and then get on the bus to go to the cinema. So me and my friend Josh, if you happen to be watching this, yes, I'm grassing you up. And we went up to our room and we thought, here is our moment. Here is our opportunity. Because there was another lad in our room who happened to have brought way too many sweets than he needed to bring on said rugby trip. So me and Josh thought, let's have a look at what he's got. So we roamed through, we had a look, there was all kinds in there. But we settled for the Haribo Super Mix. And so we opened them up. We started eating them. It was very delicious. And then a couple of minutes later, have in mind I wasn't being subtle when I was eating them. You know, I mean in front of all you people, gotta be subtle. I was handful after handful, and then the teacher walked in. And I'm caught fried egg and gummy bear handed with all these sweets in my mouth, Josh the same. And the teacher's like, you need to get on the bus now. So we run down, we get onto the bus, we're looking at each other and thinking, I think we've got away with it. To which we get on the bus, everyone's already on the bus, they give us a big cheer for being late, and to which our teacher says, oh, by the way, whoever's in their room, I think they were nicking all your sweets. Nightmare. But unfortunately, this was not the only situation where this happened in our under-12s rugby team. There was lots of theft that went on over this rugby trip weekend. But also, there was lots of theft that went on in the Israelite camp as they roamed through the wilderness. And we know that stealing was a big issue for them in the wilderness because of how quickly the Bible speaks about stealing and theft straight after the Ten Commandments. If you were to look through the Ten Commandments and read them all bit by bit, you'd see that one of the first things straight after the Ten Commandments is that the Bible speaks about idols and altars. And so clearly they were a big issue. But the next topic the Bible speaks about that relates to the Ten Commandments is this one about stealing, which is why we see it in Exodus 22, only 1.5 chapters after the Ten Commandments. And so theft obviously was quite a big issue within the Israelite community. Now, if you want to kind of define what stealing actually is, I've defined it this way, that stealing is using your gift of freedom to take another's gift of possession. To use your gift of freedom to take another's gift of possession. And we see that from the reading that there was possessions, all kinds of possessions, from land to livestock to other things that was being stolen from people within the community. But I think there's a couple of reasons why we steal. And there's a couple of postures from why we steal. And these two postures, I think, are desire and desperation. So when you steal from a posture of desire, you steal from the point of view of when others have what you want. So when someone else has got something you want, you steal from that point of desire. But when you steal from a posture of desperation, you steal when others have what you need. And so we can both fall into either of those camps at different times if we steal or if people have stolen from us. They can kind of be categorized in those couple of ways. But why I think this commandment is really, really important, and why I think that God mentions it as one of the 10 Commandments, particularly to this Israelite community, is because he wants them to understand who he is. When you have this Israelite community who are stealing from a point of desire, it's almost as if they're saying to God, God, you are not enough. I need to take other stuff because I don't think you're enough. And so for us, when we steal from a place of our own desire, what we are saying to God is, God, I need more in my life because I don't think that you in my life is enough for my life. And if we steal from a place of desperation, like the people in this story would have, their point of stealing is that they're saying, hey, God, I just don't trust that you're going to provide for me. And so God's saying you don't need to steal if you trust that I'm the provider. And it's crazy that these Israelites would get stuck in such a situation with their desires and their desperation because God brought them out of Egypt. He did their greatest desire. And their greatest desire they were actually desperate for, and God did that. And so it's almost as if in this do not steal, he's trying to remind them, I'm enough. Look at what I've done for you in the past. Look what was robbed from you in the past, but look at what I did for you. Believe in your desires that I am enough. And then he's also saying, well, also you don't need to be desperate that I'm not going to provide for you because look at how I have provided for you in the wilderness. Look at the food I've given you in the wilderness, the manna that's came from the sky. You know, God actually met them in their desires and in their desperation, but yet they've now fallen into this trap of constant theft and constant stealing because they've forgotten these things. They've forgotten who God is. And when we fall victim to our desires and our own desperation, and we steal as a result, it's as if we too forget that God is enough, and we forget that he is a faithful provider. But the good news is that's really easy to flip on its head, because all you therefore need to do is just desire Jesus with everything you've got and get desperate in prayer. That's the simple way to flip this don't steal on its head and actually live in that way. And I saw this in a beautiful way in 2019. In 2019, I went to a place called Kibera in Kenya, which is just on the outskirts of Nairobi. And Kibera is the largest slum area in Africa. It's the 4th largest slum area in the entire world. And what always strikes people when you go to a place like that is the level of contentment and the level of joy that these people have. And what that comes from, because they have every reason to be desperate. If they were stealing, if there was so much stealing going on, you could have a lot of grace for it, because if you were there and you'd seen their situations and you'd seen the living conditions, you would totally understand if they were to steal. But actually what I saw in those people was this incredible desire for Jesus and this desperation in prayer. Because they knew that despite what they didn't have, they knew that Jesus was enough. And they knew that Jesus could provide for them. And so we need to have an outset and a perspective just like that if we want to live in the purity of not stealing from others. But of course, there are two sides to this commandment about do not steal. In that, yeah, it's great to talk about us and not stealing, but for some of us, we feel the other side of this, where we think about what's being stolen from us. and what's being robbed from us. And you know, everything within the passage speaks about physical things. But I think in our world today, we have a real understanding of actually stealing is not just limited to physical stuff. People can very quickly steal our emotional well-being. People can very quickly steal our identity, can very quickly steal who we are in lots of different ways. They can rob things from us that they should never have been able to have access to. And that can come across so many different ways. And I know for some of you that there is pain, like I'm still carrying pain, that there's still pain that you're carrying because of the dreams that haven't happened, because of the things that people robbed from you that they should never have been able to rob from you. And there are things for you that you feel like has been robbed from you in the different circumstances and the different things that you've faced. And so it's all good and well to think about not stealing, but I know that there's a pain when you've had something stolen from you. But what I also know, and what I think's beautiful in this passage, that Exodus 22 passage, is what you see 3 times in that passage is the phrase, pay back double. Pay back double. And when we think about Jesus, we often think about how Jesus fulfilled the law. And when we think about him fulfilling the law, we often think that what that means is that he didn't sin. And we limit it when we think that he just didn't sin. But actually, when it talks about Jesus completing and fulfilling the law, that means he fulfills every single aspect of it. And what that means is, or what I think that means is, that what is restored to you will be greater than what was robbed from you. What is restored to you will be greater than what is robbed from you. Because what Jesus gives will always be bigger than what was taken. And I know that's really easy to say and easy to think about, but also what I've realized in this is that the way Jesus restores and the way that Jesus gives is often different to what we think. You know, I haven't seen restoration over my brother's life. I haven't seen that. But I have seen a massive restoration in my hope and in the possibilities of what could happen. And despite my pain and despite what was robbed, my hope is so much bigger than what was taken from me, because that is what Jesus has restored to me. And for whatever has been robbed from you, no matter what it looks like in reality, what is restored to you will be greater than what was robbed from you. You see, Jesus, what's really interesting about Jesus is that actually Jesus is the greatest robber in history. Because what Jesus did was Jesus went onto a cross to rob sin of all of its power. And then he went into a grave for 3 days and came out 3 days later to rob death of all of its power too. You see, Jesus became a robber to become the ultimate restorer. Because that relationship with God that us humans had that was broken, he wanted to restore that to the best that he could. And so no matter what we've been through in life, no matter what damages we face, no matter what pain we're facing, no matter what pain is still lagging from the past of what people have stolen from us, we can trust in a Jesus who will restore something that's greater than what was robbed from us. And so I don't know what your thing is. I don't know what you feel like's being robbed. I don't know what things that you still carry, what things still linger. But today is a day where we can put our trust once again in the ultimate restorer, Jesus. Let's pray.